All right, kind of annoyed. It's the beginning of April 2026, and yeah, I just had to deal with an incident today regarding my living situation. It just reminds me of the games and the tricks and, you know, what can be real inconveniences. You know, all the inconveniences you have to deal with sometimes when you live in someone's home. And yeah, I just urge folks to be careful and really think about it, because there can be a lot of negative unintended consequences, especially when it comes to family. Yeah, you have to be very careful. I don't know. I'm sure there are some good families left still, but I don't think there are many. I don't know. Anyway, so for instance, there's a little bit of a tiff that occurred today, and you know where I live, and I've lived here at the location where I've lived at. I've lived in that location for about maybe about 7 years or so, and yeah, it hasn't been fun. Lots of, mostly lows, quite frankly, but a lot of fluctuation where you think, okay, I feel okay living here, then you don't feel safe at all, then you feel neutral, and then it's just fluctuations like that. Anyway, now I'm just a little bit annoyed. I'm sure this will blow over, but I'm just documenting what it's like to live in someone's home, what that's been like for me, what it can look like, I should say, because this really isn't that talked about. And, you know, with the housing crisis and housing and just the cost of things in general, consumer goods, all that, with the cost of things increasing. Lots of folks, for instance, with housing, they're realizing that it will be very hard for them to live on their own, if not impossible. So some folks have decided to, I've seen it online, they've decided to move in with family. That was my situation. I was never able to afford living on my own in my 20s, all throughout. So yeah, it's like, what else can you do? There's much more to the story, but anyway, the incident that occurred today is I don't know, it's like the little things when you live with somebody you need to watch out for, or when you know of somebody before you live with them. You need to look at all the, how they set things up. So for instance, sometimes I have access, most of the time, and you guys seen on the channel, I've had access to this I mean, you've seen inside, so you can tell it's a decent size refrigerator and freezer. And now because of the tiff that had occurred today, it's going to show the refrigerator, but let me clean it off first. I'll just talk meanwhile. Because of the tiff that occurred today, for instance, now I was told that I can't use I'm not going to be able to use this refrigerator and freezer, the one I just showed now and the one I show on the channel, which is a bit of a hassle. It's a bit annoying because sometimes it's much easier, just in general, it's much easier to buy food and stuff in bulk. So you need the space. it may seem like a lot. I do feel like it sounds kind of luxurious or whatever to say, oh, I need 2 refrigerators. But that's just the case. So I have this one and a smaller one, and the smaller one is too small. So I can't just, I guess now I have to learn how to, I don't know how. Just creates more worries and issues unnecessary. All this just because, you know, it's just petty out of vengeance. And I had to do this randomly. Imagine if I had to work. And there has been times where I did have to work, but I had to do stuff like this. Like I just get told to do things randomly. Okay, so yeah, when somebody's like, that's a red flag. When somebody gives you access to something or gives you something and then takes it away, that is a red flag. They're showing you they cannot be trusted. But unfortunately, I did not learn this stuff till it was kind of a little too late. I didn't learn to watch out for humans. I did in a very vague sense, but anyway, so this is basically, I took out, oh, that's a mess, let me clean that. So what I had to do is take out as much as I could from the large refrigerator, which is most of it. I threw out some things that clearly are going bad. So I had to take as much as I could from the large refrigerator and have it go in the smaller one. So and I was literally given, like, basically I have to do this within 2 hours. I was not given a lot of time, so imagine if I had something already planned and important. But yeah, I took most of the stuff. The other stuff isn't mine, like all this stuff isn't mine, besides the eggs and the milk. But I took most of the stuff. From the refrigerator. The freezer, there's no way that I can fit really anything. Because the freezer, there is yeah, the freezer is full. So this is the smaller one, which sometimes this, where this is, the room where this is locked. So sometimes I cannot even access the refrigerator, freezer, which is why it's helpful to have it in the larger one. But yeah, so I had to really squish for the refrigerator section to squeeze everything. It looks like a lot of stuff, but you know, for weeks and weeks, it's not that much. It's mostly veggies and dairy. So yeah, basically it's ridiculous that I have to live with. It's absolutely ridiculous. Being almost into my 30s. If I told anybody, they would think I'm lying because it just sounds absurd. But it's the truth. Anyway, I've talked about these circumstances, which I think I'll make another talk about it again on the channel, about overall what it's like to live in someone's home with family, at least how it's been for me. It just cost me a lot, and I didn't know what I would get myself into, and I just wish somebody would have told me. So at least I can talk about it on my channel. Maybe somebody will take heed and know what to look for. You know, look for it early on. Like, you got to analyze your situation and really be objective. Like, what is the dynamic between you and who you may live with before you live with them? How is finances being involved? Like, if there's a financial element in the dynamic, in the relationship, whatever you want to call it. How is that set up? Is there equal access? You know, is there kind of a power imbalance? I don't know, there's just so much to consider. But yeah, I'll just stick with what occurred today, and then I might make another video talking about what it's like to live with family in general, or what it's been like for me. But let's just stick with today, why I showed you guys the refrigerator and all that. So yeah, I don't know if things are going to, I don't know how it's going to work in the future with the refrigerator situation, if I'll be able to use the large one or not. Really don't know. But yeah, I showed you guys that to just show you guys, like, you know, some folks, they really don't care. They want to play games, and they want what they want when they want. And that's hard to live with someone like that, that doesn't consider your schedule, doesn't consider you as a person. Like, basically how it occurred is I was threatened. I wasn't even asked. I was literally threatened. To get out all of my stuff from the large refrigerator and bring them, locate them to the small one. And as I said, I was told if I don't do that, my stuff would be thrown away. The stuff in the large refrigerator, whatever was found, would be thrown away. So there was an incident kind of leading up to this. It was a small tiff. So it's embarrassing, but it is what it is. I live in it's just a weird situation. It's a weird living environment where the individual who owns this, well, technically the bank owns it, I guess, but the individual who figure out where this one second. I might just throw this away. Oh, yeah, it's gonna have to. The individual who, signed the lease or signed the mortgage where I live is imposing themselves and creating like all this weird I don't know, rules or whatever you call it for me to live here. And it goes beyond, it's very invasive. It goes beyond the house, way beyond. So one, which I've talked about, has to do with basically trying to get me medicalized and in the system. In the, like state medical system and trying to label me a certain way so I get treated that way legally, and I mean that's their ultimate goal. So that's one, and then the second is, which just started all of a sudden, like maybe about 6 months ago or so. Basically, I used to not do that much exercise, and then at some stage I increased my exercise, and of course, no good deed goes unpunished. So basically there's this rule that, well, because I went from not walking that much to walking a little bit more and more. And then it was just kind of assumed that I would exercise daily. And then this individual became very aggressive with it. Used threats about various things, threatened to, for instance, cut access to the internet, threatened even to turn off the small refrigerator, so basically I would lose access to any kind of refrigeration. So basically what I was told, for instance, today is that I would have to walk today and every day. Deal with the medicalization journey, nightmare, whatever you want to call it. And if I didn't do those things, then I'll walk every day. And if I didn't do all those things, eventually find a job. And if I didn't do all those things, then the refrigeration this was told to me today, that if I didn't do all those things, then the refrigeration, the big one and the small one, would be cut. And then I was told one other time, I remember, when the very few times were actually refused. We said no or whatever. And then she was about to, very close, this individual who I live with was about to cut somehow the access to the home internet. And she's cut the access to the home internet many times, and so to where obviously she could use it somehow, no problem. But I wasn't able to. So luckily that time that I'm thinking of where I refused to exercise at that time, she wanted me to go on a walk with her, and I didn't want to. So I refused. And then she tried to click a button or do something, or maybe it involved a wire, I'm not really sure. And, you know, I figured out it was, she didn't actually do it, but she's really close, because the only reason she didn't do it is I just said, okay, fine, I'll go, or something like that, like in a frustrated tone. And then so she just left it alone. But yeah, this is what it is to live in someone's home. And there's so much more, so much more that goes into it. And this is really especially with family, because I've lived with others before, and they've done, like, unfortunately the situations didn't work out, but besides trying to get me to, like, they tried to get me to leave, but in, well, some of them, because I've lived with roommates before a few times, and one roommate, she never did anything. She never tried to get me to leave, I don't think. Like, we just lived together fine. We weren't very close, but we lived together just fine. She didn't do any of this shenanigans. You know, she just had her own life and I had mine, and we talked from time to time, and that's it. And then, like, even the worst case scenario was when, like, for instance, I lived in a situation which I did not like, but it was too many individuals living together. It was me and, like, several other females, and like, we just did things differently, and I think they just fundamentally didn't like me, thought that I was off, or I don't know. I think we tried to all live together, but anyway, it didn't work out. And so, like, all they did was that they tried to get me to leave and find reason to force me to leave, basically. And but other than that, they didn't do any of these, like, sneaky, backhanded, set-in shenanigans. You know, my stuff wasn't threatened or stolen. So I really think living with family versus living with, like, friends or strangers or even a significant other, living with family is just the worst. There's just something about it that's like, it's just like the most extreme version of living with someone. So, yeah. Anyway, that's it. That is it for now. Till next time.